Hi, this is Mac Lacey with the Group Travel Leader, and we're at the Travel Exchange in Orlando, Florida. I'm speaking with Scott Johnson, who prepared a seminar and presented a seminar here this week, and he's with Travel Market Insights in New York, a research firm. And Scott, I understand you have an ongoing program right now with NTA, Brand USA, and the Department of Commerce. Why don't we start with that? What are you all doing?
Sure, great. Yeah, we have a great relationship, partnership with NTA, as you said, Brand USA and OTTI. It's a program we do in 6 countries where we go in and each quarter we survey the key trade that are selling travel to the United States. So we ask how are bookings going, what are the deterrents, what are the things that are making it good, as well as we project bookings. We ask them for some projected bookings. And then that's distributed nationally as well as for custom work as well.
Okay, all right. Now I understand there's some changing travel patterns in the United States. You have some traditional countries that have really driven travel into this country for a long time. And then you've got the BRIC countries, and I'm going to let you explain for our viewers who the traditional countries are, and then talk a little bit about what's going on with the BRIC countries.
Sure, sure. Yeah, the traditional countries are the UK, Japan, Germany, and France are what most would consider the traditional countries. And they have been driving the growth for many years, but many of them are flattening off. Other than Germany, it's still doing okay, yeah. And Japan is getting a little better. But UK, which is the predominant leader, has flattened and actually lost a little bit. Where, on the other hand, the BRIC countries, Brazil, Russia, India, and China, have all grown much faster pace than all the traditional markets at this time.
So that's BRIC, B-R-I-C, and tell me a little bit about what you told the group here this week about what might be happening with visitation from those countries over the next, say, 10, 15 years.
Right, right. Well, you know, the reality is all the BRIC countries are going to grow at a faster pace than all of the traditional markets. That's one thing that's very clear. But there's a lot of what we talked about yesterday is a comparison of the BRIC and traditional. And in the end, you know, the traditional markets give some advantage in different segments. Whether you're focused on leisure traveler or business traveler, some are better. India, it's a business market, so it's growing faster, but if you're not looking for business travelers, it may not be the country for you.
Right.
Little Russia, it's not a lot of volume, but they're very exploratory. They're looking not only for a trip to the city, but also to the countryside. We talked about how the Chinese and the Brazilians in particular rent cars at almost the same level as Germans do, which is a big surprise for a lot of folks.
Well, it sounds like then, we'll talk a little bit about some spending patterns, visitation patterns, but it sounds like your research, in addition to being sort of quantitative, you're really looking at the psychographical sort of cultural things that in different countries, like Russia, for instance, you say, those folks might be wanting to come over here and visit a small town, which might be entirely different from, say, a traveler from another country.
That's right, yeah. France, for example, is a country that tends to focus on the city. Germans, which most people know, is that go everywhere. Well, so are the Russians, for example. The Chinese, as most folks know, are really icon-focused right now. But yet they're traveling from icon to icon, and many of them are staying in smaller towns for the overnight.
Right.
It's a little bit of a challenge in one way for the big cities because they're not getting those overnights. But there's some benefits happening from, even though the icons are the driver, they're staying in smaller towns and smaller areas. So it's about product awareness, hopefully. As Brand USA gets gearing up, we'll see more small town interest by China.
Well, that raises an interesting question. Many of the destinations in this room traditionally have said, well, the international market's not for us. We're a small town. We're not on either coast. We're not New York. We're not LA. We're not in Florida. But you've got some good news for them because some of these countries, Russia, we'll take it for example, it sounds like some of those people, for cultural reasons, really want to get into small town America.
That's right, that's right. And yeah, it's picking and choosing where they're at right now, but the other points that we made was it's all changing.
Right.
It's all changing, and you know, right now there's just not a lot of awareness of other than icons for Chinese travelers. So as they come over and as more and more destinations and businesses get involved in China and Brazil and India and Russia, there'll be more product awareness and drive more traffic to other
Let me
places.
ask you, we're at a group travel. The travel exchange is all about group travel, and everyone recalls the Japanese market that came in so strongly maybe 20 years ago, and it was always groups. Are any of these cultures or countries really group-driven, or are some of them much more individual travelers?
It varies by country. Clearly, the Chinese right now are group-oriented, and they purchase almost everything through the trade when they're coming to the United States. But we're also seeing signs that when they're traveling within Asia, they're starting to get very independent.
Right.
Where Brazil is a very independent-minded traveler, they're not necessarily group, they're more family-oriented. Same thing with Russia.
Right.
But both are still booking through the trade.
Right.
And they're getting a lot of great information off the web, but there's still most of the packaging and the purchasing goes through the trade.
And the good news is that so many of these companies here this week are developing family oriented I mean, they're getting so much more diverse, so that according to cultural differences, there's probably a lot of stuff that these NTA and UMA operators can still offer depending on how that culture likes to travel.
That's right, and again, it goes back to that product awareness.
Right.
The more they're aware of it, because they're staying here a great deal of time. Indian travelers are staying over a month.
Wow.
And there's other countries that aren't part of BRIC and tradition, like Australia, that are staying that long as well. So that gives you a lot of opportunity.
Okay, here's the last serious question, and then I'll ask you one that's not so serious. We'll wrap with this. If I said to you, Scott, which of these countries, of the BRIC countries, when the traveler gets into the country, who's going to spend the most dollars? Who's going to leave the most money here? Who would you say?
Well, the Japanese overall spend the most, but on a per person visit, the Chinese spend the most.
Okay, the Chinese.
Yeah.
They win the prize.
They
All
do.
right.
They do.
All right, my last question. You are a tourism researcher. Is research becoming sexy?
Sexy, I don't know, but it's certainly becoming more in demand. It goes to not only trying to figure out what market should I be in and why, and how to advertise and market to them, but also to convince for new partners. As that pie gets bigger, we've all been working real hard to just get enough partners to afford to be in the traditional markets. Now we've got to be in these BRIC markets and these fast-growing markets to really grow. So we need more partners. So we've got to have more valid information to draw in folks, more new different partners, as well as convince policymakers to get behind it.
Yeah. Well, good luck with all that. We'll follow everything you're doing. And again, this is Mac Lacey with the Group Travel Leader. My guest has been Scott Johnson with Travel Market Insights.